Mane I say ma PENDREAM TV. PENDREAM TV there osia dem yopo.
Nima. You go to Shukura and other places. You go to the Zongos. And we say to ourselves that these are slums. Madam, you know better than me. You tell the story. The slums in South Africa are different. That is hell. Hell on earth. You go to these shanty towns in Joburg and other places, they don't have electricity. They don't have running water. They don't have streets. They don't have toilets and so on. That is hell. The vast majority of people living in these slums in South Africa are unemployed. And they may never have hope of employment. They didn't go to school. They may never have the chance of going to school and so on. That is their reality. And they live in a super industrialized African society, an African economy which allegedly is booming. So the contrast between the rich and the poor is massive. People are driving Ferraris on the streets of South Africa. They're driving Bugattis on the streets of South Africa and so on, in the midst of this poverty. So these people who live in the slums and so on are beginning to look for answers to their problems. Their history, the entire system of education, everything about their culture and so on, tells them that their problem is Africa. Their problem is that, first of all, they themselves are Africans and they are black.
That alone is a problem.
That alone is a problem for them. You understand? Their problem also is that these barbarians, and this is the impression apartheid taught them, that the rest of us who had gained independence were barbarians. We couldn't manage our own affairs. And that if they copied us, they would never improve their lives. So miseducation, historical reality and so on has confused them. They are totally confused. And I agree with both Madam and Mr. London that they do this out of confusion. They are totally confused. You understand? So how do we get out of this situation when indeed all of us also have come to the realization, as taught by Kwame Nkrumah, as taught by Modibo Keita, Sekuturi and others, Patrice Lumumba and others, that there's only one way out of Africa's current problems. And that one way out of Africa's current problems is Pan-African unity. The only way. Without African unity, we can't get out of misery and poverty. Without African unity, we can't get out of economic strangulation and so on. So if our final salvation lies in unity, then everything we do, every step we take, every statement we make must be focused on achieving that objective of unity. So that when even amongst us, there are recalcitrant elements, elements who don't see the vision and so on, our reaction to them will still be to promote that unity. Because that unity is an imperative for Africa. It's not something you can suspend. It's not something you can put on hold. It's not something you can forget. African unity is the imperative for our salvation. And that is why our leaders, whether they are in Mozambique, they are in Tanzania, or they are in Algeria, must always be guided by the need to promote unity. This calls for retaliation, calls for closing down South African businesses and so on, would deepen the disunity. It doesn't take us towards unity. It doesn't take us anywhere near unity, and that is why we have to wake up and think. That is why it becomes important for us to wake up and think. My two colleagues this morning have spoken about the push for a visa-free Africa. That's a little bit out of date. Because currently, what Africa has put on the table is an African passport for every African. Do you know what that means? An African passport for every African means common citizenship. Which means that we are aspiring to move as quickly as possible to a new era in which no African will be a foreigner in another African state. That's the goal. Okay? So those who are talking about national sovereignty, illegal immigrants and so on, they are living way back. They are backward. They are living in history. Africa is moving towards common citizenship. That is the goal. That is where we are headed. Okay? As we speak now, the visa regime between Ghana and South Africa has changed dramatically. Indeed, for about 1 year now, since President John Dramani Mahama took office, Ghanaians don't need visas to enter South Africa. South Africans don't need visas to enter Ghana. That's a remarkable improvement, which must be sustained and not destroyed, no matter what the circumstance is. You understand? And then, my brother, you know, human beings, sometimes we have problems. And one of the problems we have has to do with self-glorification and self-adoration and so on. It's a normal human phenomenon. Can't do much about it. You know, it will happen no matter what you do. Human beings have a tendency of seeing themselves as being better than the next and so on. It's very negative. It doesn't help to promote healthy international relations and so on. But it does happen. Today, we are angry at South Africa because a fringe movement is mobilizing masses onto the street and calling for illegal immigrants to be sent out of South Africa. We are angry at it. We should look at ourselves and our history. Wasn't it Ghana which first enacted the Aliens Compliance Order? Have we forgotten? How different is that from what is happening in South Africa today? I was a little boy then, but I saw what happened. And I know the history. Many Nigerians and West African nationals died in the process of enforcing the Aliens Compliance Order. It became so bad, that even Ghanaians, and I have to be careful here, not to say it the way it is because it can be misinterpreted, and even Ghanaians here were described as aliens. So you have Dagombas who are Ghanaians who were thrown out of Accra because they were considered aliens. You have Frafra citizens, Frafra, who were considered aliens and so on. In Ghana, we did it. We threw out Malians, we threw out Burkinabes, we threw out Nigerians and so on. We seized their properties. Nigerians were selling their story buildings for nothing. Because they had 3 months or so to leave the country and so on. We did it. Cruelty. We visited cruelty on other African nationals. After Kwame Nkrumah, that is what we did to other Africans. These slogans which are being shouted in South Africa, we shouted it here in Ghana long ago. We have forgotten about that, and today we are pretending to be holier than others. My friends, let's be careful. Let's go back to our history. And then I hear Nigerians saying, let us retaliate. Let us close down South African businesses and so on. You see this bag, this Ghana must go. Do you know how it got its name? Because Nigeria also implemented a similar measure.
Yes.
And I saw Ghanaians being brought back to Ghana in articulated trucks like cows. We should stop this holier than thou attitude. Maybe you didn't see it, but I saw it. Ghanaians were brought back in articulated trucks like cows. They died. They died in their hundreds and so on. That's what Nigeria did. Many other African countries have done the same. You understand? And yet today we pretend to be holier than them. As for them, they are backward. We are civilized and so on. Where is your civilization? Let's be honest and discuss this problem dispassionately. You know, you mentioned the possibility of foreign interference. And I've been following that. And I've seen the claims, and I've seen the evidence that has been put out. You know, South Africa actually led the campaign against the Zionist apartheid colonial occupation of Palestine. To the extent that the South African government took the Israeli government to the international court, asking for a declaration that what was happening in Gaza was genocide. The Israelis have not forgiven the South Africans. And the Israelis have hatched a plot, first of all, to sow seeds of division and dissension within South Africa. You understand? Within South Africa. And also to isolate South Africa from the general African population. This is a plan. Indeed, there's evidence now that the March and March movement, its main financier is an Israeli businessman. And indeed, if you are working in Ghana's foreign ministry at a certain level, you ought to be abreast with international development. You have to have the intelligence at your fingertips. That is the only time you can make sensible decisions. You understand? So what is happening, even the South African intelligence has also unearthed this plot of the Zionist regime to fuel the March and March discontent as a way of destabilizing South Africa internally, and also bringing a wedge between South Africa and other African countries, so that South Africa's international diplomacy against the Zionist colonial occupation in Palestine can be undermined. Not many Ghanaians have heard this. Indeed, I was speaking to a very high-level Ghanaian official 2 nights ago. Very high level, very, very high level, who himself must be involved in some of these decisions. And I mentioned this to him. He said, I don't know. I've never heard it. Send me the documents. Send me the documents. They don't know. That is a deliberate orchestration meant to achieve the very effect that they are achieving today. Because I've seen Ghanaians that I respect, Ghanaians that I want to believe know what they are about and who are committed to Pan-African unity and so on. And I've seen them say, expel the South African ambassador. I've heard it. And I'm sitting back and saying, what happened to these people? Because they don't have all the facts. Because this thing tends to get emotional at certain levels. And you hear that a Ghanaian has been killed. You know, last night I saw a video of 2 vigilantes in South Africa going from shop to shop. And they got to a shop of a Nigerian and they said, show your documents. And the guy said, my documents are at home. I can't show you the documents. And they said, then you must be an illegal, immigrant. And you have this beautiful shoe shop. They started wearing the shops in his. They left their kaya ballet there and started wearing his beautiful shoes and so on. And drove him out of his shop. If you are a Nigerian and you see this, you'll be angry. It's emotional. You will relate to it at the emotional level rather than relate to it at the reasoned, logical level. And that is what this whole campaign is meant to achieve. All of you made reference to Thabo Mbeki. And I was impressed. Thabo Mbeki is not one politician I've admired. But on this matter, he has come out so brilliantly. Thabo Mbeki says that if all the 4% foreigners who live in South Africa leave, it will not create jobs for the South African people. And Mr. London pointed to that. You see, you have Nigerians, you have Ghanaians, you have Sierra Leoneans and so who are there, who are medical specialists. The South Africans who are claiming that they don't have jobs, they have no qualification in medicine. So if you remove these medical specialists, who is going to replace them? It will not be South Africans. It will not create jobs for South Africans. Indeed, who is likely to replace them will be the very people who were responsible for imposing apartheid on them. You understand? There are Ghanaians there who are technicians. You understand? Who are technicians, who are professionals and so on, who are teachers and so on. They are not easily replaceable. In fact, nobody can tell me that the 900 Ghanaians who were evacuated from South Africa, their departure has led to the creation of 900 jobs in South Africa. It's not true. You understand? Now, when I went to school, when I went to 1972, when I enrolled at the Ghana Institute of Journalism, many of my schoolmates and classmates were South African. They came to school here free of charge. Not just that, they used to live in the International Students Hostel on the airport junction, had free accommodation, free feeding, everything. They lived better lives than us. You understand? Now, what was the purpose? The purpose was to train indigenous South Africans to be able to manage the affairs of South Africa after the defeat of apartheid. How many were we able to train? Very little. In any case, today, my brother, international diplomacy is something which you need to study very, very well. You know, if you take Angola, Angola consolidated its independence only by the intervention of the Cuban Internationalist Force. Today, if you go to Havana, there's a memorial for the thousands of Cubans who lost their lives in the battle to conserve the independence of Angola. Indeed, the Battle of Quito Cuernavaca, the commander was Fidel. Fidel took charge of that battle from Havana. He commanded the battle in Havana. The guy who was on the ground, who actually led the negotiations leading to Angolan independence, Namibian independence, and the end of apartheid, was called Commandant Risquet, Valdez Risquet. Okay, Cuban, and so on. Cuba lost so many lives. Today, Angola is one of the largest producers of oil in the world. Cuba is suffering an oil blockade. How many gallons of oil has Angola given to Cuba in payment or in appreciation of the sacrifices that the Cubans have made? Nothing. Because Angola is afraid of America. Angola doesn't want to face American sanctions, so it's allowing Cuba to die. This is the reality of international politics. Us in Ghana. The first move, I think, was made in 1959 in Hotel Teresa in New York, where Kwame Nkrumah and Fidel Castro met for the first time. And then the relationship began to boom. The contribution that Cuba has made to the development of Ghana is monumental. Hundreds of Ghanaians, hundreds if not thousands of Ghanaians have been trained as mechanical engineers, as specialists, doctors. Indeed, the head of the Ghana Medical Service today, Dr. Kaba, is Cuban trained. When we had the conjoined twins at the head, he led the surgery. He's one of the best neurosurgeons in Africa, if not the world. A gift from Cuba. Dr. Kaba is a gift from Cuba. You understand? Today, Cuba is facing this crisis. Under normal circumstances, as we say, we help them fight against apartheid and so on. Under similar circumstances, what shouldn't we be doing for Cuba? Under President Kufuor, Cuba gave us 200 doctors. 200 doctors. To come here, work for us for peanuts, for nothing. I went to see some Cuban doctors that time who were working in the Tetekwashi Memorial Hospital in Mampong. They were living in Eburi and going to work. Can you believe the doctors, the specialists, they were living in a bakery. That's what we could give them as the accommodation. One room, common hall. They sacrificed for us. When it came to Ebola, the outbreak of Ebola in West Africa, the Cubans volunteered. They were here. COVID-19, the Cubans were all over Europe. European countries, they were providing them with medical assistance. Today, who is going to the aid of the Cubans? Unfortunately, that is what international relations has become. Past goods, good things, are not always rewarded. It is unfortunate, but that is our reality. What I want to see, I want to see the governments in Africa come together, engage in discussions with their South African counterparts for us all to resolve this crisis, because it is not in the interest of Africa. It is not in the interest of South Africa. It is not in the interest of Ghana, and cannot be in the interest of Nigeria if we continue this senseless war. This senseless war. Why? You see, these things, they are not happening only in South Africa. You see, Nigel Farage in the UK, what he's doing, is it different from the March and March movement? And yet, I don't hear our leaders condemn the development of these xenophobic tendencies, the anti-African, anti-black sentiments around the world, with the same vein that they condemn what is happening in South Africa. Xenophobia is xenophobia everywhere. It is bad. It is terrible. Racism must be fought. You understand? Everywhere, whether in Europe, North America, or everywhere. I spent the last 2 weeks also reading a lot of material about Argentina. And I urge all of you who can find the materials available on the net, read about racism in Argentina, its roots and so on. How today Argentina is described as a white country. Not just as a white country, but as an European country. Because the population dynamics were different. There were lots and lots of black Africans in Argentina. The slaves were exported to Argentina. How come that today Argentina's black population is insignificant? Go and read the history. So, look, there's a huge problem which confronts all of us as Africans. We have to tackle that problem, but we have to do that from the basis of correct information and scientific analysis of our situation. That's the only way forward for us.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. And of course, it is, like I said, it's made contributions towards our struggle towards bringing Africa together as one bloc. And one of those is this reparations, history, struggle, politics, and law. That's written by him. He's been trying to write many books. He succeeded with this one. Kwesi Pratt Jr., reparations, history, struggle, politics, and law. It tells you how much this means to him. I'll be reading some of your comments on, most of you have been reacting to Mr. Pratt. Yeah.
About 3 weeks or so ago, there was a conference in South Africa, SACU, South African Customs Union, the countries of the Southern African Customs Union. Yeah. They have a customs union, and they meet, and they met, and Cyril Ramaphosa addressed them. It's at the heads of state level. I was very anxious to hear his speech in the light of what was happening. It was still so, I was so, I thought it would be an opportunity for him to demonstrate something. He didn't. That's part of my disappointment in him. But just a few days, 2 days or so ago, Freedom Day, the same Cyril Ramaphosa he made an address, entirely different. He showed that no, what is going on is wrong and they must stop it. I believe, I may be wrong. I do not, I've not heard about any communications that have been made public and all that. I will condemn that. But I believe that that maybe the postponement or suspension of his visit may have been a wake-up call for him. I mean, it is a diplomatic tool of putting pressure. So I think this may have been one diplomatic tool that has been applied that has gotten us some results.
My brother Philip, there are some things that sometimes we elect not to talk about.
Okay, accepted.
Because they are inconvenient truths and so on. I'm talking about Cyril Ramaphosa. Who is Cyril Ramaphosa? Cyril Ramaphosa was an activist of the African National Congress.
Yes.
But he was also the son of an apartheid police officer.
Yes.
How many people know that? You understand? Why? We all jubilated when Mandela was released from Robben Islands and so on. But today, we know the history. And we know the compromises that Mandela himself made with apartheid, which today has become a problem for the new South Africa. You understand? Yeah. So all of these facts are also known, but sometimes for the purposes of ensuring African unity and so on, we keep quiet on some of these facts. Cyril Ramaphosa, his father was an apartheid police officer. Check. Go and check the history.
Senator, I just want to add to the two issues being discussed. And I think that with the Pan-African vision and with what is happening in South Africa today, the buck stops with Cyril Ramaphosa. Cyril holds the key to ensure a steady movement of that vision. I say this because, this 2026, and this didn't just start. The first incident was in 2008. Then we saw it again in 2015. We saw it again in 2019. And today is 2026. And we are still talking the same problem in South Africa. The leadership, in as much as Africa wants to come together. For now, where we sit, every African nation has a leader. And the posturing of our leaders is critical to that vision. So if South Africa cannot deal with this recurrent activities of their citizens against other African nationals, it's going to be hard to I wonder what Cyril will say at any table that he cannot say, he cannot demonstrate in South Africa. I agree with Uncle. For some of us who were matured at the time Mandela was released and we all danced in Tamale. And one of the persons we thought Mandela would make his vice president was Cyril Ramaphosa.
That was true. And he refused.
And we were disappointed. But we checked and we found out why.
Yes.
Mandela did not make Cyril his running mate. So this is Cyril Ramaphosa. So is it a coincidence that he's now president of South Africa? And all we are seeing, and look, in his April Freedom Day statement, he said, and I'll attempt to quote him, he said, "We did not ride into freedom. We were carried by the solidarity of other African nations." And so if this statement cannot be seen in his actions, he is the only one who can stop this. The president of Ghana can't go to South Africa and go and stop them from harassing Ghanaians. Yes, and 19,000 of them. But even one Ghanaian is one too many anyway, because we don't know what the potential of that Ghanaian is tomorrow and what that means for this country. So we will demand and exact action from Cyril to let us know that he's not condoning and he's not complicit in this. And that is why I said deferment is fine. It's a diplomacy. We didn't just say don't come to Ghana. No one has said that. But we say, look, this is what. Imagine, Senna, we all live in this country. We all know the politics of our country. In as much as we are trying to move towards the consensus building within the political class, we are still not there. The Cyril arrived here tomorrow and had tea with President Mahama or the foreign minister in attendance. How are we going to explain that to our competitors in South Africa who are being harassed and killed? So Cyril must mop up that issue. He has the power to mop it up effectively. And then we will talk. We are committed to the African vision of the Great Osagyefo. That is the only solution to all this back and forth. When we talk about what happened in 69, for God's sake, that's 57 years ago. I think we learned our lesson. We haven't repeated it. The Nigerians, 83, that's 40 plus years ago. I think they've learned their lesson. What lesson is South Africa learning? Mistakes will happen. We can't have it right all the time. But what do we do with the mistake? Do we just say that because it happened, so it's okay for me to... No. So Cyril, he owes it to Africa, the continent of Africa.
That's it.
To explain these actions and resolve it.
Okay.
That's very critical. Thank you.
Madam, just two small points. Okay, two small points. This deferment of visit, couldn't it have been done better even if we thought that that was the option? Did we have to leak correspondence?
We don't even know where it's coming from, Uncle. Where did the South Africans leak?
To what purpose?
Well, to embarrass, they think that they will want to find a way to embarrass the Ghana government.
No, the Ghana government doesn't know.
No, so
madam,
I didn't hear it from government circles. I saw it on Facebook. I saw it on the social media.
Okay.
And social media cuts across the barriers.
We can trace the sources. We can easily trace the sources.
We might just have to.
So even if you wanted to defer this visit, should we have deferred it in the manner that we have?
Not at all.
That's unwholesome.
That's one day.
It's completely unwholesome.
Yeah.
You understand? Yeah. And then again, it cannot be said that the South African government has done nothing. The South African government deployed all its security forces to protect foreign nationals on June 30th. In fact, the budget the budget was so huge that people were wondering, why do you commit so much of our resources to the defense of foreign nationals? It was in the millions of dollars. You are involving helicopters and so on, just to make sure that the March and March movement could not harm foreigners. So the South African government did something. Okay? Whatever they did not solve the problem, has not solved the problem. We need to take other steps in order to solve the problem. But we cannot suggest that the South African government did nothing.
They know the leaders of the march. They know them.
Well, this is
they are unapologetic about it, and they keep, even as I yesterday, I saw their lady making. They know them. How are they dealing with them? They are the leaders of the group.
Well, a few comments from our listeners. Seldel Glass says, let me agree with Uncle Pratt because I spent 4 weeks in South Africa, and majority of the population are not in favor of the way these migration issues are being handled on the streets by the protesters. Sometimes it is important to listen to the other side of the debate. According to history, Ghana isn't clean on immigration issues either. That's Seldel Glad who sent that. This one, Komla Ganya says, with all due respect, does the fact that not all South Africans support the xenophobic attacks on our citizens justify what the March and March movement is doing? I believe what most Ghanaians and Africans are concerned about is the failure of the South African leadership to respond appropriately. That failure must be strongly condemned, even if only one Ghanaian life was lost or one Ghanaian-owned business was destroyed. If it was wrong yesterday, then it is equally wrong today. That's Komla Genya who sent that on Facebook. Thanks to Yado. We are streaming on Yado's page. And this is this one. Okay, so this is Kojofi Agbe, who says Mr. Pratt has missed the issue completely. If the government of South Africa were the one carrying out immigration laws, this wouldn't have been any problem. The elected leaders are not carrying out their duties, but hooligans on the streets. Perhaps Mr. Pratt is speaking. Okay, he said it's because of your association with the leaders, with the SA leaders.
What association with SA leaders?
Osamagbia says
Tell that person that Mr. Pratt's
Association with anybody doesn't change.
This is Osamagbia says, who responds to your history, 1969. It says that was then. We have learnt our lessons. South Africa should have known better. And then a few from WhatsApp page. The book that NLC published against Kwame Nkrumah and African liberation movements. The title is Kwame Nkrumah Subverting Activities in Africa. I had that pamphlet in 1966 at the age of 13 years old, and it's in my library. I'm also a Cuban trained, having had masters in philosophy in Russian language and literature in 1983. In fact, I think, okay, a few people that I can mention of head who were also in Cuba. This one says, I must attest to the fact that Uncle Kwesi is someone I enjoy listening to every day. His in-depth analysis of Africa and Pan-African history is truly unmatched. However, I beg to differ on this point, that Ghana and Nigeria practice the same inhuman acts against our fellow Africans. It is evident that lessons have been learned. As a result, such incidents have not been repeated by Ghanaians or Nigerians against their fellow Africans. In the case of South Africa, however, these attacks have become a recurring occurrence, causing more harm than good to African unity. That's Lexis Ekwemi Egbenya.
Let me explain something to our friend. When Ghana came up with the Aliens Compliance Order as a state, it was not Ghana, not every Ghanaian supported.
Okay.
It was an ideological move. You understand what I'm saying? It might be same that today in South Africa, what is happening is an ideological move. It depends on the orientation of government you have at a certain time. It is possible that if we are to change government and to have an extreme right-wing government in Ghana tomorrow, they will do what happened in 1969 again.
That's true.
It's politics, it's political commitment, it's ideological commitment. It is not Ghanaians who imposed the Aliens Compliance Order. It was a right-wing neoliberal regime which imposed the Aliens Compliance Order. You understand? Why? People in South Africa who say that aliens or foreigners, are the problem, they cannot accept that the capitalist system they are running today is responsible for the unemployment and so on. So they are looking for excuses. That's why they are blaming others. So it's an ideological question. My brother, it's an ideological question. It's not Ghanaians. I don't feel guilty because even in my youth, I opposed the Aliens Compliance Order. Even in my youth, I opposed the Aliens Compliance Order because I'm an Nkrumahist. No Nkrumahist, true Nkrumahist will support anything like the Aliens Compliance Order. No Marxist will support the March and March movement in South Africa. No Marxist. It's an ideological question.
The comments are in. Okay, and more is coming. There's this one says, good morning. I've listened to Mr. Kwesi Pratt on the xenophobia issue. What I wish to know from him is what has the South African government and ambassador in Ghana and South African companies, what are they saying to us? Nothing. Why is he not talking about that? And says,
because he's not hearing.
Yes.
I've listed
Yes.
I've listed 10 South African mass movements
who are
fighting the March and March.
Yeah.
I've listed statements which have been issued by the Bar Association, by ANC, by the Communist Party, and so on. So he's not listening, or he's not looking for those statements.
And he backs the leakage of information. The information, very interesting.
But we don't. It was wrong.
Well, we have to move on to the next discussion because it seems most of the comments are sent at particular times of your delivery. So depending on what gets somebody, so the person will write based on what they heard earlier. So maybe sometimes wait for the person to finish. Maybe you put everything into proper context and it helps. We have to move on to the next discussion and talking about the ideological question. The same thing that the US is experiencing. The president in power currently and the actions that the US undertakes are all somehow. Anyway, so we'll be talking about the politics of the World Cup thus far. And I'll start with Mr. Landon on this one.
You know, the World Cup, why do we have a World Cup? The World Cup was supposed to bring the world together, like the Olympic Games. The same thinking that made our leaders design the Africa Games. You know, to bring countries together, we all compete. You know, take politics out. One of the cardinal principles of the World Cup organization was to take out politics, take politics out of it. But in this particular World Cup, the politics has been so blatant and vulgar. You see, when the World Cup was played in Qatar, before the games came, from the time Qatar won the bid to the time the games, we saw some politics, which we thought was bad. There were allegations about how Qatar won it. There were allegations about so many things. And there was hue and cry around the world. It was all denounced. And the whole idea was that the next World Cup should be better. Last in everything, you know. So the world looked forward to a World Cup that would be a better celebration. In fact, it has been expanded. More countries that would not have got a chance will now have a chance. Africa had so many teams for the first time. Ghana had an opportunity. We're all excited. Many people had their fears that some politics would raise ugly head along the line, but not along the blatant lines that we saw. Yes, under the present United States government, there were concerns, taking its own stance on certain things as to how that would negatively affect the smooth running of the World Cup. If you have a host country, that has already come out to the list of countries that it has banned. That alone jeopardizes the World Cup. Because the World Cup is not only for the participating teams. Football fans from across the world want to go and watch, because in every team you find people of different nationalities and places of origin and all that. Various stars in various teams have people, their own fans who come from across the world. So people go to the World Cup, it brings the world together. But the attitude of the United States government was making some people begin to get worried as to whether it will be that smooth. Just as the game started, we saw the first casualty. African world-class referee. World-class referee who was denied entry after he had gone through all the processes, was on his flights, arrived. Yes, people travel, people are turned down at airports. But what happened in his case? He was detained for how many? 11 hours or so? Questioned as a suspected terrorist. Oh, this was so far-fetched. And then sent back. It was an embarrassment. It was a blight on the organization of the sport, of the games. It didn't stop there. Some teams were being prevented on their movements were being restricted, and it was terrible. It was terrible. So when the games were about to start, a lot of the excitement had gone. A lot of it had gone. People were beginning to lose some level of interest. Then the games itself started. We saw what happened. And the worst thing is that red card that was, well, not the red card, but the reversal of the red card decision. Immediately there were suspicions as to what could have caused that. Oh, before those suspicions could be, the President of America came out, started boasting that he made a phone call. Terrible. Terrible. So, the World Cup is still running. It's not over yet. We are going to semi-finals before eventual finals. Already, people are already drawing their own conclusions. There's suspicion that some nations are being favored because some refereeing has gone in ways that have made people so upset. So, this World Cup has really, the way it's been organized and implemented, has made it lose a lot of the shine. The excitement that people had, a lot of it is gone. There are people who traveled all the way, but some of the experiences they had, some of the things they went through, has been very disappointing. The other political developments, like our local political developments in the whole process, that was another matter. I won't go there. I will talk about the World Cup itself. So I hope that, and in fact, to be honest with you, I think the FIFA boss should be fired. I think he should. He has compromised himself too much. Too much. He has, the way he has behaved towards Donald Trump from the beginning, I mean, it's too much. It's too much. He's made, worsened people's suspicions about whether he has a favorite team or whether. No. It's too much. It's too much. I think he's lost what he needs to hold that position and enjoy the trust. So I think he should be fired if he doesn't resign himself. So I think these would be my views on the World Cup.
Thank you very much. Adia.
Thank you, Senna. And even before I say anything, let me confess that I was in Boston and I was in Philadelphia to watch the 2 Ghana matches. My first time going for any World Cup tournament, and so I have my own experiences from there. But on the politics of FIFA, you see, politics has become such a very dangerous and contentious word that as soon as you introduce it in any element of life, it comes with its own baggage. Ordinarily, World Cup football is FIFA, an association of international football. We go there, nations compete, and we want the best to come out as the winner of the tournament. Now, when we start off by introducing machinations into the whole enterprise, we already weaken the basis of the sport. And for some of us who are not everyday football pundits, I only watch football when Ghana is playing. So I don't know what's happening with the other games now. When FIFA tells us plainly, blatantly, that they cannot interfere in the Thomas Partey Canadian visa issue, it takes us a little bit, because FIFA is the organizing authority of the tournament. And if there's dispute, if there's confusion about a member's participation, you expect FIFA to step in and resolve it. We didn't see that with Thomas Partey. We will grant the Canadians their authority to determine who comes to their country or not. But FIFA needed to make a strong case for Thomas. It didn't mean that they would have set aside their decision. So we didn't see that. Then the Somalian referee, someone who had been adjudged the best performing referee by CAF, right? Last year.
Yes.
And football, I keep saying, is like elections. You know, 2 parties, 3 parties, we are all campaigning, we are on the field. The referee is the Electoral Commission. So the referee determines which team deserves the day. He's supposed to apply the rules independently and across the board. No favoritism. No one rule should be interpreted separately for another person. So how did it happen that this referee was what do you call it? FIFA sort of accepted his role as a referee only for the American authorities to be able to deny him entry into the USA. That is very, 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 very questionable. Are we suggesting that FIFA as an international body is working outside, has its own autonomy, working without speaking to the involving the nations that are involved in the tournament? Because when you are hosting the tournament in one particular country, you need to speak to that country to understand their rules, what they require of you, and what has to be done. So at no point did FIFA know that this referee, America's profile of this referee, is that he's an extremist and he will not be allowed into their country. The FIFA didn't know that. That question has to be answered by FIFA. I think the gentleman has been unfairly treated. And what America has done is to dent the credibility of the outcome of this year's FIFA tournament. Iran, you will not host Iran in your country because you have issues. Did FIFA have the power to move the tournament to another country, even if one of your members is being discriminated against? These are the issues that I think should be tabled before FIFA. Because America, if we hosting, all of us belong to FIFA, and we've decided that this tournament is going to be in the United States of America, must America bring its own rules and prejudices to bear on the activities of FIFA? We need to resolve those in order to build the credibility of the tournament. Otherwise, what has happened this year has eroded the confidence that we had in FIFA. I watched the Ghana England game, and at the stadium, the outlook was England is going to beat Ghana. England was looking for a win. Ghana was looking for a win. After the match, when we celebrated, people asked us, "But you didn't win." We said, "Yes, we defended our independence. We don't want to be colonized the second time in football." But something happened. Sitting there, I'm not a football official. I don't even understand. Although I come from a football family, I'm sure Uncle knows Osman Orlando of Kotoko. That's my uncle. My mother comes directly after him. Tanko Nasamu of Hearts Olympics, the first Northerner to play professional football in this country. It's my uncle. So I come from a football family. But I won't claim that I understand all the rules. Sitting at the stadium that day, Shane Jama, we knew that the Ghanaian goalkeeper, what's his name? Asari,
Benjamin Asari,
would be named the man of the match. I knew that because incidentally, I had stayed in the same hotel with the team, but I didn't know them. I met that gentleman in the lift twice at the Graduate Hotel in Providence. So when I saw him, I said, "But this is the gentleman I was seeing in the lift." I didn't even know that. I didn't know that. You know, they are not the everyday Black Star team that we knew. So I said, "Oh, this is the gentleman." And so I paid particular. And in my view, the gentleman should have been the match, the man of the match. And then it was rather handed over to this English guy, Bellingham. And I respect that gentleman. I respect integrity, I respect honesty, and I respect principles. And the gentleman said he didn't think that he deserved that man of the match award. That's another dent on the FIFA tournament this year. So we go to Philadelphia and we are playing Croatia. Of course, as I said, it's like elections. So we drew with England. We did our permutations and we knew where we're sitting in our group. And we didn't want to risk a Thomas Petty Canada incident. So I think we all agreed, football, but we sat at dinner and discussed avoiding a win against Croatia. That will keep us in the States. So we go to the stadium and all we are looking for is a draw. I don't think it's such a big deal that we lost anyway because we didn't want to go to Canada. So again, the match went on. And then we scored a goal. And I was sitting in the section with the Minister for Youth, Honorable Opariado, and his team from the Sports Ministry. And we all saw this goal. And we celebrated. And then it was nullified. It was offside what? So the JAMA, the VAR, we started it on the stadium. And demanded that they should play the VAR. We were Sharon Fulhama, we were all there. And the VAR actually exonerated us. It was a goal. Again, another plot on FIFA and referee. If you recall, after the Ghana-England match, our referee said VAR went for coffee that day. When a clear penalty, we were denied a clear penalty. So you see, there are too many things happening with this tournament that I think FIFA has to go back to the drawing table and look at how to redeem its integrity. Other